Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Abhyasa yoga yuktena cetasa nanyagamina paramang purusham divyang yati parthanuchintayan. This verse captures the whole essence of Bhagavad Gita. Or rather, in this verse, Lord Krishna has given the essence of Bhagavad Gita, which is, it's very similar to the famous verse which Lord Krishna states twice in Gita, with a slight difference. Manmana bhavamad bhakto madhyaji mang namaskuru mame vaishasi yuktvaivam atmanang madparayanaha. Now, in this verse, Lord Krishna states, he's emphasizing remembering himself, Krishna. And he's referring to himself indirectly. He says, one who meditates upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sometimes people ask, why does Krishna say that? There are several verses in Bhagavad Gita like this. For instance, Ishvara sarvabhutanam hrideshe arjuna tishtati brahmayan sarvabhutana yantrani yantarudhani maya. So it might appear that Krishna is referring to Ishvara as someone else. Although else, in many places in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna clearly establishes that he himself is Ishvara. Well, elsewhere in the Gita, Lord Krishna establishes that he himself is that Antaryami. He is the Ishvara who dwells in everyone's heart. Sarvasya chaham hriddi sannivishtaha. I am dwelling in everyone's heart, Lord Krishna says. So why does he sometimes refer in the third person and sometimes in the first person? I don't know if it's said like that in Tamil. The reason that I can understand is that when he's referring in the third person, he's establishing the principle. Just like if the teacher walks into the classroom and no one stands up, the teacher may say that when the teacher walks into the classroom, the pupil should stand up. The teacher is established. He's not saying when I walk into the classroom you should stand up, but he's establishing the principle that it should be done. And then having done that, on another day he may walk into the class and people don't stand up, and he may say, why don't you stand up when I walk into the room? Once the principle is established, then the person who embodies that principle may be the behavior that is appropriate with the person who embodies that principle may be described. So Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and by always thinking of Him, one can go to Him. And that is the perfection of life. Unfortunately, people don't understand this. So Lord Krishna has very kindly come into this material world. He's already in the material world. He's in every atom. And in one sense, everything, the material world is non-different from Him also. But He comes he manifests His original divine form and speaks this transcendental knowledge of Bhagavad Gita to give us knowledge of what is our actual duty and what is actually for our benefit, which is to remember Krishna with love. There are many demons who also remembered Krishna, but in an inimical spirit. So to remember Krishna in any way is beneficial for the jiva. But to remember Him with love is natural, that is the dharma of the jiva. And not to remember Him is unnatural for the jiva. And to remember Him with enmity is also unnatural for the jiva. So this is a basic principle which actually it's not very difficult to understand. One doesn't have to be a PhD or MSc to understand this principle. In fact, no amount of material intelligence can help us to understand Krishna. On the other hand, we find many children who are hardly educated who are very enthusiastic in bhakti by chanting Hare Krishna. Sometimes we find that young children can explain this philosophy of Krishna consciousness very nicely. Whereas some highly educated people who are certainly apparently more intelligent than the child who can explain Krishna conscious philosophy. Such intelligent and educated people cannot understand it at all. So by speaking Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna is addressing the intelligence of the conditioned soul. But it requires purified intelligence to understand Bhagavad Gita. Recently I glanced through the edition of Bhagavad Gita given in English by Dr. Radha Krishnan, who is one of the most famous people in the modern age from Tamil Nadu. And among philosophers around the world, his name is well known. He was actually famous more as a philosopher than as the President of India. Just like the... Is it? He's a ex-Vellorite. Just like the present President of India, he is more famous for being a scientist, but now he became famous as the President of India. But his real specialty is science. So Dr. Radha Krishnan's commentary on Bhagavad Gita demonstrates his wide knowledge of philosophies, both Western and Eastern. There's no doubt he is very highly learned and capable in understanding and presenting philosophical ideas. However, he made a major blunder, which in his philosophical presentation, which rendered the whole thing worse than useless. He wasn't able to understand what Krishna was saying, because he did not approach Bhagavad Gita in the mode of bhakti with which it is to be received. And thus he concluded that it is not the person Krishna to whom one surrender, but to the unborn within Krishna, which is never mentioned by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita nor anywhere else in Shastra, and is an imagination of those philosophers who are, according to the words of Bhagavad Gita, envious of Krishna. So although Srila Prabhupada, he knew Dr. Radha Krishnan personally actually, and he respected him as a philosopher and a gentleman, but he wrote many articles very strongly attacking Dr. Radha Krishnan's misinterpretation of Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada, in the introduction to his doing so, stated that it's better to have a learned enemy than a foolish friend. Is that a Tamil saying also? No? You don't know that one, no? There are so many Tamil sayings. So anyway, the point is that Bhagavad Gita is meant to appeal to our intelligence, but it is not only by intelligence that we can understand Bhagavad Gita. Our intelligence is highly influenced by our whole attitude to life. That's why the same object is assessed by different people. They use their intelligence to assess it in different ways. A Chanakya Pandit gives the example that the body of a beautiful woman is desired when seen by lusty men, is desired by them. When seen by other beautiful women, is envied by them. I don't know if he said that, but I'm throwing that in. To a self-realized person, it is of no more interest than a piece of stone. And a dog sees it as a piece of flesh. So it's the same object, but according to our attitude or goal of life, we see it differently. Similarly, different people may go to a forest and start thinking in different ways. A poet may want to compose some poetry to describe the beauty. A botanist might consider making studies of the flora and fauna, or a biologist might think of studying the flora and fauna. A businessman might think of purchasing, clearing the land, selling the wood, and making a housing project and making lots of money. A lusty man might think of bringing his girlfriend there to enjoy. And a devotee thinks, let me chant Hare Krishna, then all the animals and plants will be benefited. So, our intelligence is not enough to understand Bhagavad Gita. That needs to be guided actually. In the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, as it is, Prabhupada writes that how in the introduction he writes what our attitude should be in approaching Bhagavad Gita. Because if we approach Bhagavad Gita as just someone else's idea, which I can accept or reject as I like, we cannot get the actual benefit of Bhagavad Gita. And even though Prabhupada has explained it so clearly and nicely, we'll think, well, that's just Prabhupada's opinion. That's why many times our acharyas in their writings or in their preaching, they don't say directly, you chant Hare Krishna. They'll say, well, why not try Hare Krishna? There's no harm, you don't lose anything, you'll be happy. They're not, they're speaking to people who don't really have great faith, but they're trying to somehow or other engage them in the process, in the beginnings of Bhakti Yoga. And a lot of the preaching we do, it appeals more to people's senses than their intelligence. People in the present age are very much on the sensual platform more than the intelligent platform. Previously in Indian culture, people would recognize if there was a sadhu and one who was learned and able to guide others according to Shastra. But nowadays, unless the sadhu does some magic tricks or tells some interesting stories or builds a big temple, people take no notice. Prabhupada deliberately wanted to build big temples of ISKCON in India. And what is the need for building big temples? Why not just go and speak Bhagavad Gita as it is, door to door? Because no one will take it seriously. Of course, the great acharyas in the past, especially in South India, they built great, wonderful temples. That was for the glorification of the Lord. But actually, chanting the holy names is more recommended in the modern age. Because if there are big temples, people may become envious and want to attack and steal everything. And to find enough people dedicated to keep up all the standards of deity worship is very difficult. Whereas chanting Hare Krishna is very easy and very effective. People, you cannot go for darshan of Srinivas in Tirumala all the time. But you can be with the Lord all the time by chanting His holy names. So chanting is the best process for the Kali Yuga. But nevertheless, Srila Prabhupada built big opulent temples. Because Prabhupada recognized that unless he did so, people would not take this movement very seriously. It's very nice that all of you are coming here regularly. This is not a big opulent center of ISKCON. But nevertheless, you are coming regularly and you are eager to serve. Which means that you have come out of an understanding of what is the actual essence of Krishna consciousness. And it's expected probably that we should construct a large temple for ISKCON in Vellore at some point in time. And if we do so, we can expect that many more people will start to come. Because if there's a big arrangement, people think, oh, this is something very important. But big temple or small temple or no temple, the message is important. But people in the modern age are not very intelligent, and therefore they need some external manifestation to be attracted to. Of course, this is only part of the understanding, because again, the temple is meant for the glorification of the Lord and the service of the Lord. The temple has its own intrinsic transcendental significance. But most people cannot see or understand this. And they tend to judge a spiritual movement not by its philosophy, but by the extent of its external show. So we may make an external show to attract people to come and gradually introduce them to the essence of understanding Bhagavad Gita as it is. But actually people are very dull-headed in the modern age. The whole advertising industry is proof of how foolish people are. If people were not fools, the advertising industry could not exist. Take for instance Pepsi Cola. It has no food value whatsoever. Actually it's harmful to health. It doesn't taste particularly nice as far as I remember. Last time I took it about 35 years ago. And no one would buy it unless it was vigorously marketed. But that millions of people drink Pepsi Cola every day all over the world is testimony to the fact that people are stupid, and because they advertise it, people buy it. And people tend to believe whatever is shown on TV or put in the newspaper. Now in India there's so much propaganda for the sexual emancipation of women, of freedom, liberation. That before marriage and even after marriage they should be free to go here and there and have union with whoever they want. And people think, yeah, this is a very good idea, without considering that this is sinful. And it will cause disaster in human society as it has caused disaster in the Western world. And in fact, the mass media is promoting this because it makes people more stupid and makes them better consumers. But people are foolish and they cannot see what is in there for their actual self-interest. The philosophy of Krishna consciousness deals with the subtle principles of reality. We cannot see the soul, which is why foolish people do not believe in the existence of the soul. But this propaganda that people should just enjoy their senses unrestrictedly, it kills the ability to subtly understand, or to intelligently understand the subtle principles of reality. And thus in a most foolish manner, people think that gross sense gratification is in their own self-interest. And even if you try to explain to people how actually it's not, they can't understand because their intelligence is as developed as that of a donkey. They may have MSc, PhD, but their attitude and outlook is like that of a donkey. I want sense gratification. Let me enjoy. And his whole intelligence works on this principle. Therefore, they cannot understand higher principles. So many times we have the experience of preaching to people in a very logical way, but they just can't grasp it at all. Sometimes people ask, well, you see Christianity, Islam, it's spreading so much. Or the different, like this Kalki avatar, and Sai Baba, they have so many followers. Why?
Yeah.
Because they appeal to people's foolishness, not to intelligence. In so many years, we've experienced that we cannot preach to a Christian on an intelligent platform, because they've taken God as our order supplier, one who supplies our sense gratification. And they're satisfied with a childish, blind faith, that you just have to follow this and don't listen to anything else. Anything else is coming from Satan, which is someone who they imagined. So, philosophically, they don't have any philosophical basis. Or even if they have some philosophy, it's developed from the foundation of very, very foolish ideas. A woman bit an apple, and because of that the whole human society is suffering since time immemorial. And then God came and He was killed. God was killed for 3 days. And if you believe this, you live in heaven forever. And if you don't believe this, then the all-merciful God who loves you so much sends you to hell forever with no chance of ever coming out again. So there's no philosophy here. But people like it because they don't have to think about anything, and they just think, okay, I'll just believe and do whatever, and God will bless my sense gratification. In America they say, God bless America. Well, why only America? Because we're America. But actually one cannot, they may speak of God, they cannot even begin to understand Him by this such a shallow approach. And their speaking of God is actually mixed with envy of Him, because they want Him to serve them by providing them with sense gratification. So the actual dharma of the jiva is that of service to the Lord, recognizing Him as the supreme enjoyer. It shouldn't require much intelligence to understand. We are small, He is great. We should serve Him for His pleasure. So this distribution of Bhagavad Gita as it is certainly having its effect. It must be accompanied by promotion of the chanting of the holy names of Krishna. This chanting will help to purify the atmosphere so that people can accept this philosophy. And when they accept this philosophy, then they should chant Hare Krishna. So we have a lot of work to do in promoting this Krishna consciousness. Promote it means that we have to ourselves become Krishna conscious by actually taking this understanding of bhakti to our hearts, giving up all false pride and developing a very strong service attitude, chanting the holy names, serving the Lord and His devotees, and helping to promote this Krishna consciousness. This will help us also to become Krishna conscious. Unfortunately, we are also products of Kali Yuga. Prayanalpayasa sabya kalavasmin yuge janaha mandasu mandamatayo mandabhagya upadutaha. Right, to give the translation? So we're all unfortunate. Our minds are disturbed. Any small thing we become disturbed. We have less intelligence. We're unfortunate. This Krishna conscious movement is meant to make us fortunate. Sometimes we see, even after having the good fortune of coming to Krishna consciousness, still our mind is so disturbed. And though we know we should act as a devotee, we don't. We should go on with this Krishna conscious process and become purified. Engage in Sankirtan Yajna. This is purifying. It means chanting the holy names ourselves and inducing others to chant also. Distributing these books. They definitely have their effect. Although I was saying that most people, they're not very intelligent, but still we find that there are enough people who are sincere, who are taking these books and appreciating the content of them, and their lives are changing by reading these books. So please help to distribute these books and let us live by them, by always remembering Krishna, by always chanting His holy name, and in this way prepare ourselves to go to Krishna. So thank you very much all for coming. Please keep on coming, and by coming here you will go to Golok. This atmosphere here, even though it's a rented room in a bazaar of Vellore, but the atmosphere should be just like that of Golok Dham, where everyone who comes is simply interested in serving the Lord and glorifying Him. So let us create that atmosphere by our enthusiastic serving mood. Hare Krishna. Any question? Yes.
Why does one have envy? Is it coming because we are not able to do devotion?
By nature we all love Krishna. But when we don't recognize that we're meant to love Krishna, that love of Krishna becomes transformed into envy. Instead of thinking, I should serve Krishna, we think, I should be the enjoyer. And then when we see others are enjoying or they're inhibiting our enjoyment, we become envious of them. So yes, the root cause of all anarthas or unwanted contaminations within the heart is lack of love of Krishna. So let us all chant Hare Krishna and engage sincerely in the service of Krishna and pray to Krishna, and gradually we shall become purified. So we'll finish there. We can chant Hare Krishna for a few more minutes.